Our largest trading partner, the United States, grows ever more precarious. There are many who suggest that we should try mending ties with another trading juggernaut, China. One is Jeff Mahon, Director of Geopolitical and International Business Advisory at Strategycorp and a former Deputy Director at Global Affairs Canada's China Division. He joins us from Ottawa right now. Jeff, thanks a lot for talking to us. Our relationship with China is always tense. It is perhaps particularly so right now when we all remember that a couple of our citizens were essentially held hostage for a long period of time. I'm talking about the two Michaels, and even more recently, several Canadians executed in China because of drug offenses. So why don't we begin with a conversation of a fundamental clash of views on human rights. How should people think of trading relationships in the context of opposing views on human rights?
Thanks, Paul. That's a several billion-dollar question right there. China is our second largest trading partner, and it has a very different system, both politically and economically. And that shapes the way China looks at human rights and offers, differing and, of course, less political freedoms to its own citizens vis-a-vis Canada. But at the same time, China is the world's largest population. It is the world's largest or second largest economy, and it is Canada's second largest trading partner. And there are economic complementarities between Canada and China that require us to engage. We're not going to be able to agree on everything, but we need to be able to engage with China diplomatically and commercially across a number of different vectors, including human rights. But we absolutely need to find ways to be able to work with China so that we can benefit both from economic and trade relations.
Does China feel the same way? And another thing to toss into the mix here is the fairly strong evidence that China has, in several different ways, tried to influence our politics here in Canada. Is China interested in good faith negotiations on trade?
I think that we need to test it out. Right now, we're at a very precarious time, not just Canada, as you and your viewers are very well aware. The situation we have with China or with the United States is putting a bit of an existential crisis and a new reckoning on what Canada's identity as a sovereign country, but also as a trading nation is going to mean. And so when it comes to dealing with China, there are a lot of fundamental problems that both politically and economically, the way that the two systems intermingle. But that is creating various sorts of spiraling out of control when it comes to retaliatory actions. That's really causing serious damage to Canadian agriculture exporters right now. So I think we do need to try to start having good faith negotiations. And I do believe China has sent some signals for rapprochement. They have been for several years, but the political climate here in Canada has made it impossible for us to deal with that. But the situation has changed, and we do need to find ways to engage. We can only find out after the fact if agreements are going to produce any real results, but we do need to try to engage them, put some guardrails on the retaliatory spiral.
Right, and in your recent piece, which was published, I believe, in the Globe and Mail, yes, it was, you pointed specifically to a signal being sent by China. You believe that China is open to more constructive talks on trade. It was in a section called "Adjustment of Measures" in a Chinese trade document. So you'll do a much better job of me than explaining it. Explain to our viewers why you think that China is explicitly signaling to Canada that we're willing to talk these issues through.
So as your viewers will recall, last fall, Canada put tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, as well as steel and aluminum. And China signaled at the time that it was going to retaliate against Canada. And it took several months, but China undertook an investigation and it produced a report. So its Ministry of Commerce did an investigation, outlined what it saw as restrictive trade policies from Canada. And that report is what gave China its own internal justification to retaliate against Canadian agricultural products, canola byproducts, peas, some meat products, and also seafood. But in the report, it talked about how can Canada deal with this, and it put out several different avenues. A few of those are just political non-starters, but there is one in there which it outlined that the two parties can come to a consensus through consultations. And that is essentially a way for the government of China to send not through a big loud press release, but through a report, an official government document, a signal to Canada that it does want to have discussions about this. And that's precisely why I called on the government of Canada to engage China on those discussions. From there, we'll be able to see where we have mutual interests, where some of the points of contention lie, and if there's a path forward.
What is a realistic endpoint of negotiations between the two countries? Canada still has what many people feel are justifiable concerns about subsidized electric vehicles in China and a desire to keep unjustifiably cheap vehicles out of Canada. What's a justifiable endpoint for these talks?
You're absolutely right. The situation is China has a very unique economic model, a socialist market economy. On the one hand, you have that market economy aspect where there is, fierce private sector competition in the consumer goods and other types of sectors. But then there's also places where the state economy dominates, state-owned enterprises, and foreign competition and even private sector competition in China is not allowed. And then there's this mushy middle where private and state interests commingle, and you see all sorts of subsidies and other forms of market access barriers that create an uneven playing field. That is something that is going to create challenges, particularly for Canada, as it wants to develop its own electric vehicle industry. So I think what's a realistic outcome is of dealing with China in a way that says, you've got these particular interests, we've got the same interests, we're both concerned about creating jobs and employment and investment for our countries. And China itself has a lot of barriers in similar sectors. So I think where Canada went wrong in last fall was when we put those tariffs on. We didn't just put tariffs on, and we didn't say, oh, it's because we want to protect development. We actually accused China of being a maligned actor that was seeking to intentionally undermine Canadian jobs and development. This was not the way you conduct diplomacy, particularly when Canada has a broad range of commercial interests with China. So we should have reframed things differently. So I think what we need for any kind of negotiation with China is we need to be able to recognize, because the reality is this, that there are different sectors where we can cooperate freely. There's sectors where we can't cooperate freely, and some of those are going to be in national security or dual use technology areas. So those might be prohibited for trade. And we already have mechanisms that deal with that as our export controls regime. But then there's this mushy middle where the sensitivities don't come from security concerns, but rather the way that different economic models interact and the impacts that they have on development interests. I think couching the conflict in these terms, in terms that China also sees things as, is a way that you can start changing the frame of the negotiations so you can start moving towards a more mutually or incentive compatible approach. And so an outcome from that would be able to have the two countries outline where there are sectors that we're not going to be able to cooperate because of those security concerns, where the sectors we can cooperate, but we need to place some particular restrictions because the negative impact it could have in jobs, and then other areas where we can freely engage because of the mutual positive sum outcomes. I think that is what Canada should be seeking for in any consultations or negotiations with China.
Jeff, a great conversation. Thank you very much for bringing it to us. Jeff Mahon is director